We hear a lot of perspectives on the Mankind podcast. Inclusion of a guest is not an endorsement of their views, and the opinions expressed here do not always represent the mission or values of the Mankind Project USA.
Looks like the rain has gone.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It's Boys and Hodgson on the Mankind podcast where we're setting out to prove that there are indeed many ways to be a man. And I think we're doing a pretty fine job of it every week. Today, I get the opportunity to speak with somebody who I haven't known all that long, but we've developed a pretty good rapport pretty quick in the conversations that we've had. I'm with Michael Skye today. Michael, say hello.
Howdy.
Michael Skye, I ran into pretty recently because he's putting together a very large event. I was honored to play some small part in it by doing a recording with him. The event is called Calling All Men. That's going to be coming up. Let me tell you a little bit about Michael. Michael Ivan Skye is a 52-year-old entrepreneur, transformational leader, and now soon-to-be dad who has a passion for inspiring men to reclaim their sacred honor and own their role as leaders for their people. For the last 25 years, Michael's been working with men of all ages. He spent the last 14 years on a world-traveling sabbatical, leading retreats, trainings, and safaris in 3 languages across 6 continents. Michael currently resides in the heart of Africa, where he awaits the birth of his first child. We'll probably spend a little time talking about world traveling today. But the first thing that I want to start with is, why the Calling All Men Summit?
Yeah, well, for the last maybe 7 years of this, for the entire 14-year sabbatical, or just about all of it, I was resolved to, when I come back to my work, and I gave myself the permission to never come back to America, to never come back to my work. In the back of my mind, I always knew I would, and the visions just started happening to come back for men because it's my true passion to work with men. When I was 14, my very large, beautiful Mormon family was thrown into a war. And I heard someone use the term, someone I interviewed for the Calling All Men used the term nuclear divorce. You're talking about, like, there's nuclear family and then there's like nuclear divorce. Yeah. And of course everyone gets obliterated in the radius of the explosion. So that's kind of what happened. And I was an older brother and my siblings were left at home. My family was in tatters, but I kind of escaped that situation and kind of made my own way in the world as a young man, and was just kind of torn apart seeing that my brothers were lost. They didn't have their father at home, and I left home soon after he left. And so they were kind of left without some of the masculine support and guidance that I had. And my mother had, by this point, literally just stopped parenting and was going through her own stuff. And I just felt this huge calling to come back from my younger brothers. And I did. I went and took them under my wing, them and another young man who later became my brother-in-law, married my youngest sister. And I boot camped them for maybe about 6 months intensively in entrepreneurship, manhood, ultimate responsibility, fitness, like just to the extreme. And it was the most powerful, beautiful, exciting experience that I ever had. And that's where I got my real passion for working with men, especially younger men. And later on, when after that first experience, the work I did with them evolved into conflict resolution work, leadership work, and so on. I started working with people, mostly in a group, in-person format, which is what I prefer. And then, yeah, 2010 is when I walked away from America in a conflict with a
Hmm.
man. Um, and I felt I was not going to get justice by the US justice system. And there were no other remedies that were working. I was trying everything with this guy, from my world of being compassionate and honoring and responsible and understanding. I went to extremes, and he just wouldn't meet me and resolve things. And I started having violent thoughts. Anyway,
Hmm.
that maybe it's a good time for a sabbatical. So I took off and I left everything behind. I realized I have a lot to explore about my own shadow, the shadow of my
Hmm.
culture. And let me just, before I keep teaching people, let me go and better understand myself and the world I'm coming from. And then over the years of my travels, I see men struggling more and more and more. And the culture wars, there's, you know, there's plenty of anti-male and anti-female resentment and warring going on all over social media. And um, but it seems it's popular to be, or what's accepted is to be pro woman, believe all women. But what about the guys left behind? So I just think about my younger brothers, and I think about these young men. That's what stands out as I travel. I meet young men who are lost. I can't help but take them under my wing because I just have such a passion for that. So, long story short, this event gathering men to confront full on the crises that each other is facing, our sons, our brothers, our fathers, ourselves, each other. This is simply a way for me to get my ass back on the field and stand up and attempt to make a difference, and yeah, return to my work. And there's plenty of entertaining conversations happening on podcasts and everything about the state of
Yeah.
men, and people are doing things. And for too long, I've just been watching the
Hmm.
podcasts, and so it's just time for me to do something. So,
The man in the arena, that thing.
yes,
And as you're talking about kind of the conflicts and everything that's going out there, and I think that what you and I got to in our conversation, what I feel strongly about, and I think that you resonate with also, is it's not the quip, it's not pie, right? This is not a zero sum game, and we can support men and support self responsibility and support emotional intelligence and connection and healthy power and as you said, ultimate responsibility, right? And help all of us, help men, help women, help our
yes,
cultures, help our families, help our communities through this. And yeah, that's I get very sad. I get very sad in the conversations when there's a non-recognition that both sides of these attacks hurt all of us. Like it takes us all down. So can we all, focus on, and MKP, and this is the self-work, right? It's like, focus on my shadow, just as you said, focus on understanding me more deeply, and the more deeply I understand myself, the less I feel the need to blame, attack, create vitriol, maintain biases, convince others of my biases, convince others to join me in hating other people. Like, all of those things kind of start to fall away.
yeah. Well, it's in standing up for, let's split this up for just for the sake
Yeah.
of it, between men and women. You know, the more one side attacks the other, the more they create resentment and ground the other in conviction that you're wrong and evil, and have them feel justified in attacking you back even stronger. And then I mean, it's just this escalation of wounding. And in standing up for your side, if you're doing it in the context of a us versus them, it always comes back worse for your own side. So it's like, this is what I saw with my parents, my mother and father warring against each other, and the whole family's getting destroyed for
Yeah.
generations. My mother and my father and the kids and the future generations, like, it's not a winnable war. And so this warring approach, whether it's divorce or culture war, geopolitical war, it's just a disastrous um, kind of, you know, way to resolve conflict. Yeah.
Resolve, and does it, right? Like, as you said, I think it's like it doesn't.
Right.
Like there isn't a resolution there. And I think that the more time I've spent in men's work, there was a Zen teacher who I got close to, Junpo. Dennis Kelly passed away a few years ago. Junpo was one of the most intense, crazy dudes I had ever met. Like, he was a crazy hippie, psychedelic experimenter, world traveler, all over India guy, and then, found his place on a Zen cushion at some point later in life. And dude would get into these, and I can get all wound up in my angst and get all wound up in my conflict, and what about, and Junpo just look with the intensity of the intensity of a million stars and a black hole, and just laugh. And it was like, you're doing it wrong. All of this attachment, all of this intensity, all of this making other people wrong. And in men's work, it's kind of like, I'm no different. Fuck everything I hate out there, everything I get pissed off about, everything I want to attack out there is like, oh, that's just me. Just another reflection of me that I don't want to look at. And it's like, here we are. So, yeah.
How I just see this now is there's just a void of elders,
Beautiful.
or you could
Let's
say
talk
a
about
void
that,
of
yeah.
adults in the room, right? And, so you see two people warring against each other. The elder is the one who comes and puts his arm around both and says, hey, remember, we're brother and sister. We're family. How can we resolve this and take care of everybody, right? Or even if you're part of another tribe, the elder is the one who goes and meets the elder of the other tribe to resolve the conflict. But we're left trying to resolve it, the two people in conflict, like it's just full on war. There's no elder role, and there's so few people when they're in that conflict willing to say, you know what, let me be the elder, let me be the one who plays that role of peacekeeper, uniter, and chief, in a sense. There's like this, so many men obsessed with being alpha or dominant, but that's kind of the young warriors, he goes from boy into like, I'm all on, man, and
adolescent kind of position. Yeah.
yeah, maybe and when you're in war and you're a warrior, you need that whatever if you're going to go fight the enemy. But if you bring that home to your village, to your people, and that's how you're trying to resolve conflict, yeah, it's a really immature way to do it because you're going to destroy everybody. You're going to destroy all your people. So where are the chiefs and the elders? Yes.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I think this is I'm excited because there are a lot of men's work groups, men's coaches, people putting themselves in a position of leadership, many when they're not even ready. And they're saying, all right, I'll be the one that takes the arrows and let's figure out a way forward. And I think this is one of the next evolutions that we need to make. And I feel like more and more men are excited to make is how can we be the chiefs? And when I say chief, what I mean is like in I'm gonna speak about Native American culture, not knowing American culture, but from what I've understand, it's like for a lot of um, Native American tribes back in the day, a chief is not someone who holds power over
Mm,
you. A chief is someone like you, and authority is not external. Like if Boyson, if I feel that you hold me in your heart, I will happily trust you to go and speak to the neighboring warring tribe on my behalf. I anoint you as my chief in a sense, like because I feel that you hold me in your heart. I feel that way about you. And so the moment that I no longer feel that way about you, you're no longer my chief. Does that make sense?
absolutely.
So authority is something granted, and to be a chief means to essentially win the trust of all your people, so that you're not just on one side against the other. You're taking all of your people into your heart. And yeah, I'm very interested and excited about that. Yeah.
Lovely. And in mythopoetic kind, we talk about sovereign, the sovereign archetype, and that kind of thing, and that really resonates with what you said. One of the social media memes that I've put out there is the sovereignty begins with listening. And if you are unable to listen, you will never be able to hold the role successfully of sovereign. And that's what I hear you saying is like the king isn't the one who's in control of everything. The king is the one who understands and listens to the what's happening, really listens to what's happening. Like it's a receptive place
Hmm.
rather than a place of ultimate authority, as we've kind of misshaped it, I think. Yeah. Yeah. Nice. So how has it been like just looking at some of the names on the Calling All Men summit page? There's some pretty great conversations. Are there some things that are really standouts for you in the conversations that you've been having? I won't start calling any names. I'll leave it to you if you want to do that.
Yeah, there are, but part of it is simply that I think I've gotten much better as an interviewer. I think in the beginning, I really didn't have a clue what I was doing. I've not done any podcasts before this, really. So I almost all of my best interviews happened like in the last week, seriously. And I just have to imagine that I'm getting myself out of the way in a sense, and I'm less self conscious, and I'm more in the present moment. And but there's some really inspiring men. I've interviewed about 55 men in about the last five
Wow.
weeks. That includes scheduling the interview, preparing for the interviews, and doing the interviews. And it's been a full on thing. And yeah, it's I'm kind of interviewed out, but there are some really inspiring men. One of the things that's inspiring is just to see just how many there are. Like I could probably keep this pace up for years because I just keep getting referred more names. Oh, you have to talk to this man, what he's doing, and and that's inspiring because this is pretty new. I mean, when I was coming up, maybe there I don't know how many men were out there inviting men for mentorship and brotherhood and all of this, but it seems to really be at a swell right now. Like there's really like an uprising,
Yeah,
and it's exciting because different people are doing different things.
for sure. So I'm gonna just re-ask the question. What are a couple of things, if you just reflect and take a breath, what are a couple of things that really pop for you as like, here's a thread that I can see, even with all these different men and all these different things, here are some threads that I've gotten.
Yes, that's great. Okay, so one is therapy. Instead of talking about therapy, talking about training.
Hmm.
So I was talking to Jason Gaddis, who's got quite an impressive resume. He still seems quite young, but he's um, really thoughtful man who's had a lot of experience, and he says that men like to um, walk away with, I don't know what, some kind of therapeutic thing, with some tools, some skills. Okay, now I'm better equipped to deal with this when it comes
Yeah.
up. And more often women in therapy, they want to talk and express their feelings and process it and let it go, and all that sort of thing. Whereas men want something like train, in the Matrix, they want to go learn kung fu and then go back into the
I know kung
Matrix
fu.
and be better able to handle conflict with Agent
Uh,
Smith. You know,
yeah.
so there's this stigma about therapy, and there's even been, I think, a stigma around a lot of men's work. You know, but that's changing. That's changing, and so that's one thing. I think another thing is fatherhood is becoming this really honored and kind of like a path, where even that is something that we need training
Yeah.
for, because the times have
Yeah.
changed so much. And if you're going to be a protector, it's not for the neighboring tribes or from the neighboring tribes, but it's from social media. It's from all these changing threats to the well-being of our children, our family, ourselves, our own health, our own autonomy. So yeah, people talking about training for fatherhood. That's exciting. And me personally, I'm really excited to give a lot of, to really honor the brother role,
Mm,
you know,
nice. Thank you.
like brotherhood and the archetype of a brother, you know. Like I've played that role in my brother's lives, and there's been nothing more fulfilling and bringing of honor for me personally than to show up and be a brother. And so yeah, we can talk about king, warrior, magician, lover archetypes, and and I'm seeing like brother, father, elder, chief.
Sweet. Love that. I love that expansion. That's gorgeous. Yeah. Really cool. Jason Gaddis, by the way, is our age. Just so that
Is he okay?
he looks like that man takes care of himself. Holy crap. He's in beautiful
Mm.
shape. Yeah, Jason's an awesome dude. I love that distinction. And some of the guys that I've met in men's work over the years, like Jason, like Aaron Huey, there's some guys out there who's like this idea of training, this idea of effortfulness, this idea, and the side by side, the shoulder to shoulderness, both in the brother archetype and
Hmm.
in the kind of training archetype, right? Like, I want to be shoulder to shoulder with my brothers, figuring this shit out, right? And engaging in it.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's really great. I'm going to go back to, so you've used a word a couple of times, honor. Talk to me about honor. What does that mean to you, Michael?
Yes. So to me, I talk about honor as a feeling, or you could say maybe the spirit of honor. And so for me, this is like a fullness of my heart, and I feel this warmth and expansion in my chest, and this peace and this strength. Um, and it's something that's very, in a way, its cause a lot of times is very logical. So when you make a stand for what you feel is right, or for your people, your child, or in the face of fear, in the face of whatever difficulty, and and someone sees you in that, or or you have that moment of just awareness of who you're being for your people, then this feeling is present, and it's powerful, and it's affirming, and it's that inner yes, that I'm on the right path, I'm doing the right thing. And it's also it can be the feeling that inspires us to do the right thing. It's like it kind of creates this feedback loop, where you feel called. Like, to me, honor is often a calling. It occurs like a calling. Like, for example, um, there was a point when I was helping my middle brother He had this dream of being a professional boxer. And so I started waking up an hour earlier, driving across town, showing up to train him, inspired to be, to support him on his journey. And he would oftentimes be resentful and, because it's big brother coming and waking him up. And I'd go and turn on the Rocky music, let's go, man, let's go. I'm fired up, And he lashed out at me several times. And finally I was like, why am I doing this? What am I doing? He doesn't really appreciate me and my efforts here. And I was about to cancel our trainings for that reason. And then I had the insight that, wait, this is what my brother does with all older men who step into his life as a coach or as a trainer. And it's probably related to my father leaving. So what if who I am for my brother is the one who doesn't leave, the one who stays, And that feeling of honor hits me. And I'm like, so the next morning I'm going in there even harder, And so for me, honor it's a feeling, and it's a very powerful feeling, and one that it can always be sourced. And it occurs to me as more powerful than all the other emotions. It's like, it doesn't matter the fear, the shame, the guilt, the doubt, the whatever's that's present. In fact, a lot of times, the more that's present, the more honor as a feeling can be summoned. It's like your heart or your spirit is always ready. It's the human spirit we talk about, right? Is always ready to be summoned in a way. So I've created what I call honor work. And it all revolves around this feeling. And it goes back to, I was not so happy on my 14-year journey to have insight after insight about how much of it actually came from my religious upbringing in the Mormon religion. Because I left that religion, and I was really blessed with a lot of, we could say, like, heart entrainment. Like we really learned to be quiet and listen and feel our hearts as to understand what our Heavenly Father wanted, or what He was saying to us. And so there was a lot of simply getting present to what I feel in my heart, and kind of self-awareness in that way. And even though I left that religion, I hung on to that, or I kind of rediscovered that, not quite realizing that it was, but the Mormons might call it the Holy Spirit or something like this, and put their brand on it. But I realized it's just a very human feeling. It's just, and it's a very pro-survival, pro-social feeling.
That's well, I'm so glad that I asked that question. I had never heard honor spoken of. First time I've ever heard honor spoken of as an emotion. And I can really get it in your description of it. I know that. I understand that feeling. And there's like an emotional fluency. There's like there's aspects of, it's got integrity in it. It's got a like somatic yes in it, like body saying yes to what's there, to what's happening. There's as you said, an effortfulness, entrainment about it. That's like, I'm pushing it. I'm reminded of, so that sounds like flow. It sounds like the research on, achieving flow state, where it's just like, because the couple of things that go into flow is, I'm doing something that I don't fully know how to do, and I'm living at the edge of what my skill level is. Right? So it's not unconscious. If I fully know how to do it, then it's just unconscious. It's routine, it's habit, it's whatever. and I'm consciously pushing myself beyond the boundaries of what's really comfortable. So there it is, right?
Honor has to be like, to generate it, you have to choose. There has to be an I choose in it. Because it's the feeling you feel when you reflected on your choice,
Yeah.
you know, what you stood for or what you stand for or what another stands for. In the Mormon religion, every fourth Sunday, they have what they call a fast and testimony meeting. And it's just, there's no teacher teaching from the front of the room. And everyone just has an opportunity, if they feel called, to stand up and do what they call bear their testimony. And what they'll tend to do is say, I know the church is true. I know that Joseph Smith was a prophet of God. What they're doing is, you're making a stand for another individual in the face of what anyone else might think of you. You're standing up for someone, and there is the feeling of honor in that. To witness it, to be honored, or to be the one honoring, there is this feeling, and it's so powerful, for for humans, but for men, to have honor in their life. And I think that a lot of men who maybe walk away from their religious or spiritual upbringing, maybe if they experience some betrayal, maybe
Yeah.
whatever happens, we tend to throw out a lot of what's kind of that works about religion. And I think honor, and the spirit of honor, is one of those things. And so I'm a huge advocate for, like, every man knowing honor as his own, as his birthright, as a guide from his heart, and that he can have, and no one can take it from him.
Thank you. Yeah, I think there's really something to that. I don't have that experience of the Mormon church. And I also recognize that many of the men who I learn from, who I consider mentors in the work, there is absolutely a soul. There's a spirit. There's a spirit to what they do. And there are pieces that they nurture in their lives daily, practices that they nurture in their lives to invoke, to bring to, one of my ongoing stretches. I get my ass on the cushion, like, sit down, shut up, hold still, listen, what happens, what comes out of that. And I think that, I certainly know that I went through a period of time. I was raised as an evangelical Christian, went through a period of time in my teens when my mom got born again, and therefore the whole family got born again. So Jesus camp and the whole deal is part of my upbringing. And my rejection of that, I rejected a lot. I threw out a lot. And there's some part of me that, like, as I've gotten older in my life, it's not going back to that system of beliefs, not going back to that book, not going back to that. But there's a recognition of the pieces of there that are pro-social, as I heard you say, that there's something in this that's like, oh, there's value here. Let's not lose the value of all things. Yeah. Take what's valuable in it, which, super integral kind of idea, right? Integrate, transcend, and include as we continue to grow. Yeah. I think that's really cool. Yeah. We've talked a little bit about, so you've said it. I just want to talk a little bit more about it. I was born in the United States. I've lived in the United States my entire life. I've done some traveling around and seen some other cultures, never spent a significant amount of time in other cultures. Talk to me about the world, Michael. Talk to me about American culture and cultures that you've experienced other places, because that's something that fascinates me about your story.
Do you have 14 years, Wilson?
No, I have about 20 more minutes.
Okay. Um, wow. Well, one of the things I would say is I think that most people, I, let me say, I think most Americans who quote unquote travel rarely get to really experience other cultures. And that's because most of our travel tends to be a commercial vacation. You know, we're going to a resort, we're going for some kind of manufactured
Hmm.
adventure. You know, we're going to do this, then this, then this, and then we come home safe and sound. Well, adventure is like, no, you head off into the unknown and you don't know if you're coming back or when. So I don't know. I kind of hold adventure that way. And I'm a huge advocate for every man at some point in his life taking off with a one-way ticket, no promises of when he's coming back, and just letting yourself experience being gone
Oh.
and and not needing to be on a schedule and being free to say yes to the invitations that you get and see what happens. I'm a huge fan of sabbaticals as well. I think we've largely lost this in our modern Western culture where there's no time. We have to get back to work to pay the bills. But I think that's one reason we tend to not experience other cultures. But another one is, and this happened to me. Um, I got so in 2010, I accepted an invitation to Belgium for a month to house sit for someone who'd been through my work, and a mentor of mine was living nearby, and I took it, and this was when I was like, okay, and I sold everything, and I might never come back. And I got a one way ticket to Kuwait. I said yes because I had nothing else to do. Then I got a one way ticket to Brazil, and I said yes because I was done planning my life, my future.
Mm.
I was done booking and kind of making certain this future plan, and I wanted to like undo my American enculturation in a way. I wanted to discover myself anew. I wanted to kind of unwind. I was so wound up around being productive and you know huge vision for the future and change the world, and I just wanted to like honor the human
Mm.
here who just wants to breathe, And so when I was invited to Brazil and I landed there and I was taken in by a man who I'd gifted my work to some years before, I was very excited because, well, okay, first I heard how dangerous Brazil
Right.
was before I went, and I was like, man, should I really go? And I watched this documentary about how there's a whole plastic surgeon industry for ears because there's so much kidnapping around Sao Paulo, and what they do is cut off your ear and send it to your family and get them to pay the ransom. Like it happens so much that they
Wow, that there's an industry
so
for it. Wow.
so yeah, I really had a lot of fear before going, but I heard a lot like Brazil's the people are so warm. They they have all the time in the world. They're friendly. So I went there, and yes, I did land in a German city. So, and Germans are, on some level, Germans, no matter where they are. They're not going to be the same as the Brazilians that are in Rio de Janeiro, for
Mm.
example, or up in the Northeast. But um, I was I was so disappointed at how cold the people seemed. And then this mentor I told you about, I mentioned who was in Belgium, who'd spoke maybe about 5 languages fluently, had traveled all over the world. He said something to me about how I don't know exactly what he said, but what I got from it was people when I talk to people and I'm struggling with basic Portuguese or trying to communicate them in English, what I'm transmitting is my energy. And if I'm nervous, this is what I'm sharing with
Mm.
them. And so, of course, they're cold or distant or awkward or closed. When I got that, I started just, what am I grateful for? And I would share that. What's beautiful? What do I desire? Like all these beautiful feelings, and even even non beautiful feelings, but just feelings. Be alive in my feelings. When I shared this, the people just, it was like they opened up, and I was invited to things, doors opened, and I saw a world of Brazil that I would have never seen had I not, and I think I heard you maybe use the term man box, but like the box I
Yeah,
had,
right.
the way I learned to cope in America as a teen boy growing up was like, I'm not going to, if we pass on the street, I'm not going to smile at you first. I might not even make eye
Right.
contact. And if you look at me too long, I might give you a nasty
Right.
stare. Well, I took that to Brazil. That's also what I took to Brazil. And of course, they don't want to talk to a guy like that. So this process of becoming aware of my normal way of surviving and connecting with people, it just opened me wide up. And now I feel like there's a Brazilian Michael who was born in
Yeah.
Brazil.
Nice.
And some dimension of him only is fully alive in Brazil. And the same in Africa, Thailand, places like this where, yeah. So I found travel to be done in a really conscious way. It can be a profound transformational um, experience.
Mm.
Um, I mentioned Africa, Thailand, and Brazil because the cultures that impact that make me feel most alive are the ones that feel most alive. Like there's a different welcome in every
Yeah.
culture,
Yeah.
right? So in America, you could say maybe a man or a human, but maybe a man is welcome to show up like this, but not like this,
Right.
this, and this. Well, that's different everywhere you go. You know, in Brazil, there's just the language is such that most American men, when they go to a place like Brazil or Thailand or Africa, somewhere in Africa, they're you're not going to want to talk the way the locals talk, even if they teach you their language, because maybe it sounds feminine or it sounds gay or some of the noises do or whatever. And I found such joy in just
Letting go.
trying to fully be Brazilian,
Mm.
and there were parts of me that just came alive. Like when it comes to like, I don't know, approaching a woman or something, if I think of myself as Brazilian and I'm going to be Brazilian,
Hmm.
it's just so much richer and so much more magical, like the Brazilian way, So, um, yeah. And the thing that East Africa is what I really
Yeah.
know. And Brazil and Thailand have in common are some other things. Um, so one, they're very friendly, very friendly. Um, two, the language is wild and it's a lot of fun to
Yeah.
speak. Um, three, I have an attraction to the women in all those three areas. That makes it more alive for me. And all three are beautiful. Like the nature is profoundly different in each, like you're in another world, especially in Africa, I remember landing in Kenya for my first time in 2006. We're driving out of the airport and there's giraffes grazing in the field right beside us. And then the big shadow comes over our van and I look up and it's like, I swear, I thought it was a pterodactyl bird. It wasn't that, but there's like there's animals that it's like you just feel like I'm in another
Yeah.
world, like I'm in Jurassic Park or something.
Interesting.
So yeah, and I like going places personally. I like going places where they don't speak much English. Now in East Africa, they speak mostly Well, Kenya and Uganda, they speak a
Yeah.
lot of English, but not in Thailand unless you're just hanging out in the tourist spots. Not in Brazil, again, unless you're just hanging out in the really touristy areas. I like going deep into the place and find myself waking up surrounded with people that don't speak a word of English.
Mm,
Like, to me, that's so much fun,
mhm.
you know? So I enjoy the learning. I also enjoy like a little bit of risk.
Yeah.
It makes you
Adventure.
more
Yeah.
aware. Yeah. So I don't know, Boyson, I could go on forever, but
That was great. What I want to unpack in there just a little bit is uh one of the things that I've learned in therapy. Who says? My therapist, that's one of the questions. Who says? Every time I come up with some supposition about what I'm supposed to be, who I should be, what I should be like, what blah blah blah, all the beliefs that I took on, all that. Who says? So, and there's a masculinity piece in there, right? Like, you grew up in the culture that you grew up in here in the United States. I grew up in a similar culture. I have 6 brothers, surrounded by boys and men, this kind of man boxy kind of stuff, right? And that's how I defined my masculinity because of what I was raised in. But that's not the only definition, right? Because that's what I hear. And when you go to Brazil, like, you're a man. You're still as much a man there as you are here, but there's an openness, there's a fluidity, there's a receptiveness, there's a softness, there's like all of this other possibility.
what I should qualify that because they all still have their really kind of specific rules about what's okay and
And
what's
there's still
not.
taboos,
You
right?
know, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah, if you're in Belgium, you give a guy a kiss on the cheek
right,
for a greeting, but don't make it too many kisses or the wrong cheek or whatever, because that means something
right,
else and someone could get
right,
offended. Don't try to kiss any man in Brazil because you might end up in a
right.
fight. I mean, but I've been all around the world, and it's actually kind of a confusing thing, but it's very funny. It makes for so much laughter,
That's good.
to get it wrong, and it's just yeah,
Right. And that's
yeah,
great in and of itself, right? If you can approach it like as a curiosity, as a game, as a I'm willing to make a fool of myself, right?
yes,
That's
yeah.
all really beautiful. I don't remember. There's a great quote about true innovation or true genius relies on being the willingness to be a fool, to make a fool of yourself. That's
Mm,
the only
mm.
way that success will come.
I think I do a good job of that.
I think you're a wonderful fool, Michael. Thank you. That's great. And I have my own East Africa story. So you're in Kenya. So
Uh-huh.
um this is a manhood in East Africa. We had a young man from Burundi come and live with us. This was back in the day, Pascal Akimana, and he lived with us for about a year and a half. And this was his first time being in the United States, and he needed a place to stay. And again, like, God, he spoke 7 languages. He was like 22 years old at the time. And I just remember him coming into the house, and the first time that we were like out and going to do something or and he reached over and held my hand out walking on the street.
Mm.
And for him, that was respect and connection and brotherhood.
Yeah.
And I just remember the feeling of like, holy shit, everything that comes up
Yeah.
from, my
Yeah.
American upbringing, my white
Yeah.
rural American upbringing about how that was. But I came to so much love and appreciate that openness, that willingness to be in that kind of connection. And I think, yeah. So here, props to adventure travel. Yes.
Well, it's something that I also notice as I travel is there's a different level of connection and welcomeness for physical touch, for certain kinds of expression. And it's coming from a big Mormon, very physical, and to us, like, love is physical touch is
Mm.
love, you know. I mean, if you were with my family around Thanksgiving, I don't know how many people would.
There's,
Most people in America would be like, "What the?"
there's, there, yeah.
So I often have not felt so welcome
Ah,
in
yeah.
America, even as a younger man, even as a boy. So to travel to other places where I just felt like I'm already welcome, as I'm welcome just as I already am.
Mm,
Like there's no change that's needed. I can just be myself. Is so refreshing,
yeah.
you know? And yeah.
Really nice. So let's focus back on the calling all men. Just tell a little bit more. When is it? How's it happening? What's it going to look like? And then we'll wrap up.
Yeah, so it's December 4th to the 10th. It's 7 days. Each of the 10 days will have maybe about 6 or 7 different interviews that men can watch. Um, we're, my intention here was to talk to a really wide spectrum of men, um, some of whom otherwise might not talk to each
Yeah.
other, might be upset at each other, whatever. And but we're not having political conversations. We're just facing what we're all dealing with, and we're saying, who can we be for each other? What's working? How can we step up? Et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, so it's an online event, and everyone can attend and watch for free if they put in their email on that page. Boyson, I don't have a link to share with you right now, but before you share this, maybe I can get that to you. Um, and yeah, we got. I mean, I've kind of working on some other cool ideas to go along with the online event, but it's not yet shaped up. So um, yeah, what else can I tell you?
That's it, man. And you don't have a link, but I do. It's the callingallmensummit.com. There it is. There's a stay update right now, as you said, December 4th through 10th. So right now there is a link on the page to stay updated, so you can plug in an email address and just get updates about what's happening. There's a partial list of the speakers that are going to be coming on. Michael, I love what you just said. I want to underline it. Um, Based on my reading of some of the folks that you've already interviewed, yeah, there are some. You're interviewing some guys who wouldn't necessarily be in the same room with each other, and I think that's really interesting to me. I think that you're going to get a
Mm,
really broad spectrum of views, and I love the way you pull it together. So, are there best practices? Are there things that we can look at? And as another conflict resolution junkie, are there values that we can agree on? Are there things underlying that I can't disagree with, right? I can't disagree with your feeling. I can't disagree with, like, wow.
yeah,
And some of the data that's out there about what is actually happening with men right now, right? Like
yeah,
there's there are there's bad metrics out there for some of the things that are going on with men
yeah. And really, it's time that we figure out new ways forward together.
together.
So the culture war may be fun and all, if you get a slam dunk on somebody, or you can I don't know, get a leg up on someone, making them look silly or proving them wrong or whatever. But yeah, what I'm really excited about is next level leadership for men and new technology, and you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you. Michael Skye, Calling All Men Summit. Michael, I'm very grateful to be getting to know you. And thank you for this conversation. There was some
likewise.
juicy stuff in here. Uh, and hey, I'll just plug myself, right? I did an interview for the Calling All Men Summit. Um, I think it was a beautiful conversation.
Yes, it was. It really was. It's Boyson, if you want to come here during the summit and watch from Kenya. Maybe see some zebras and lions. You're welcome.
That's awesome. Thank you very much. I don't think that my kids would appreciate it if I just up and left. Hey, kids, I bought a one-way ticket. I'll see ya. No, I don't think that would fly. My honor is here, and thank you for that. So, everybody, check it out. Thank you, Michael, for being here, and have a great day.
Thank you, Boyson. It was fun.
This has been the Mankind Podcast, produced in association with the Mankind Project USA. I have been your host, Brandon Clift, and I personally want to thank our guests for joining us today and imparting their wisdom from their experiences in this amazing journey called life. Now, the fee for this episode is simple. If you found gold and insights that you believe could benefit your loved ones and those you care about, be sure to share it with them. And of course, remember that life doesn't happen to us. It happens for us, so long as we rip the pen out of fate's hand and become the author of our own story. So my friend, pick up the pen and we'll see you next week. Lots of love.